utilitarian occupation as the watering the flowers is rather Milton's duty than yours. Especially at the moment when intellectual pleasures await you. The German grammar is on the table. Please open it at page 15. We will continue our previous exercise.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language, and I know perfectly well that I look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German while he was leaving for town. Indeed, he always lays stress on your German when he is leaving.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health. His gravity of demeanor should be commended in one so comparatively young as he is. I know no one who has a greater sense of duty and responsibility.
Suppose that is why he often looks a little bored when we three are together?
Cecily, I am surprised at you. Your guardian has many troubles in his life, and idle merriment and frivolity would be out of place in this conversation. You must remember his constant anxiety about that unfortunate young man, his brother.
I wish Uncle Jack would allow that unfortunate young man, his brother, to come down here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know, German, geology, things of that kind influence a man very much.
I am not sure that even I could produce any effect on the character that, according to his own brother's admission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. Indeed, I am not sure that I would like to reclaim him. I'm not in favor of this modern mania of turning bad people into good people at the drop of a hat. As a man sows, so let him reap. Put away your diary, Cecily. I really cannot understand why you should have one at all.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I should probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is a diary we all keep about with us.
Yes, but it usually chronicles the things that have never happened. It couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the 3-volume novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightingly of a 3-volume novel. I may have written one in my earlier days.
Did you really, Miss Prism? How wonderfully clever you are. I hope it did not end happily. I don't like novels that end happily. They depress me so much.
The good ended happily, and the bad unhappily. That is fiction means.
I suppose so. It seems very unfair. And was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was regrettably abandoned. I use the word in the sense of loss or mislaid. Back to your work, child. These speculations are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Chasuble coming up through the garden.
Dear Dr. Chasuble, this is indeed a surprise.
And how are we this morning? You, Miss Prism, I trust, are well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short stroll with you in the park, Dr. Chasuble.
See, I have not mentioned anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know that. But I felt instinctively that you had a headache. Indeed, I was thinking about that and not about my German lesson when the rector came in.
Cecily, I hope you're not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically. My metaphors were drawn from the bees. So has Mr. Worthing returned from town?
We do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes. He usually likes to spend his Sundays in London. His sole aim is not pleasure, as by all accounts that unfortunate young man his brother appears to be. However, I shall not disturb Egeria and her pupil any longer.
Egeria, my name is Lacia, dear doctor.
It was merely an illusion drawn from the paper office. I shall see you both, no doubt, at evening prayer.
Dear doctor, I find that I am having a headache, and a stroll might do it some good.
With pleasure, Miss Prism. We shall go as far as the schools and back.
That would be delightful. Cecily, you will read your political economy in my absence. The chapter on the fall of the rupee you may omit. It is somewhat too sensational. Even these metallic sentences have their melodramatic side.
Horrid political economy. Horrid geography. Horrid German.
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He's brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany W. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I mentioned to him, though, that you and Miss Prism were in the garden, and he seemed anxious to speak with you privately for a moment.
Tell Mr. Ernest Worthing to come here. I suppose you'd better talk to the housekeeper about a room for him?
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. They're rather frightening. So afraid he'll look just like everyone else.
Hey, guys. You are my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You are under some strange mistake. I'm not little. In fact, I'm more than usually tall for my age. But I am your cousin Cecily. And you, I see by your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Oh, but I'm really not with you at all, Cousin Cecily. You mustn't believe I'm good.
If you're not, then you've certainly been deceiving us in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked and being really good all the time. That would be hypocrisy.
Of course, I have been rather reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
In fact, now that you mention the subject, I have been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that, though I am sure it must have been very pleasant.
It's much pleasanter being here with you.
I can't understand how you're here at all. Uncle Jack won't be back till Monday afternoon.
That is a great disappointment. I'm obliged to go out by the first train on Monday. I have a business appointment that I'm anxious to miss.
Couldn't you miss it anywhere but in London?
No, the appointment's in London.
Well, I know, of course, how important it is not to keep a business engagement if anyone wants to retain any sense of the beauty of life. But I still think you'd better wait till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wanted to talk to you about your emigrating.
About my what?
You're emigrating? He's gone up to buy your outfit.
I certainly wouldn't let Jack buy mine. He has no taste in neckties at all.
I don't think you will require neckties. Uncle is sending me to Australia.
Australia? I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night that you'd have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh well, the accounts I've received of Australia and the next world aren't particularly encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not that. That is why I want you to reform me. You might make that your mission if you don't mind, Cousin Cecily.
I'm afraid I've no time this afternoon.
Then would you mind if I reform myself this afternoon?
It is rather impractical of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
Well, that's because I'm hungry.
How thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that if one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires regular and wholesome meals. Won't you walk with me?
Thank you. Might I have a boutonniere first? I never have any appetite unless I have a boutonniere first.
A yellow rose?
No, I'd sooner a pink rose.
Why?
Because you would like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to say such things to me. Miss Prism never says such things.
Then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old woman. You're the prettiest girl I've ever seen.
Miss Prism says all good looks are a snare.
They're a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I wouldn't wish to catch a sensible man. She didn't know what to talk to him about.
You are too much alone, Dr. Chasuble. You should get married. Misanthrope, I can understand. A womanthrope, never.
Believe me, I do not deserve such neodualistic a phrase. The common practice as well as the precept of the primitive church specifically states that they are against matrimony.
Well, that is obviously why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. You do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by persistently remaining single, a man converts himself into a permanent public temptation. Men should be more careful. This very celibacy leads weaker vessels astray.
But is a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
But, and often I've been told, not even to her.
Well, that depends on the intellectual sympathies of the woman. Maturity can be depended on. Ripeness can be trusted. Young women are green.
Well,
I spoke horticulturally. My metaphor was drawn from the plant. But where is Cecily?
perhaps she followed us to the schools.
Mr. Worthing,
Mr. Worthing?
this is indeed a surprise. We did not expect you until Monday afternoon.
I returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Mr. Worthing, I hope this garb of woe has not betokened some sort of terrible calamity.
My brother.
More shameful debts and extravagance.
Still leading his life of pleasure?
Dead?
Your brother? Dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I'm sure he will profit by it.
Mr. Worthing, I offer you my sincerest condolence. You know, at least the consolation of knowing that you were the most generous and forgiving of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but this is a sad, sad blow.
Were you at least with him at the end?
No, he died abroad in Paris. I got a telegram from the manager of the Grand Hotel last night.
Was the cause of death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
As a man sows, so shall he reap.
Charity, dear Miss Prism, charity. Not all of us are perfect. I myself am susceptible to the droughts. Will the interment take place here?
No, he expressed a desire to be buried in Paris.
Paris? That hardly points to any very serious state of mind. You would no doubt like me to make some sort of allusion next Sunday. My sermon on manna in the wilderness can be attributed to almost any occasion. Joyful or, as in the present case, distressing. I have preached it at festal days, confirmations, christenings, harvest celebrations, and days of humiliation. The last time I preached it was in the cathedral for the Society of Discontent among the Upper Orders. The bishop who was present was much moved by some of the analogies that I drew.
Well, that reminds me. You mentioned christenings, I believe, Dr. Chasuble. I suppose you know how to christen all right? I mean, you are continually christening, aren't you?
It is, I regret to say, one of the rector's most constant duties in this parish. I have often spoken to the poor classes on this subject, but they do not seem to know what thrift is.
Well, Mr. Worthing, is there any infant you were interested in baptizing? Your brother was unmarried, I believe, correct?
Yes,
Those who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
but this is for no child, dear doctor. I am very fond of children. No, the fact is, I would like to be christened myself. This afternoon, if you have nothing better to do.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you have been christened already.
I don't remember anything about it.
But have you any grave doubts on the subject?
Well, I certainly intend to have. Although, I don't know if the thing would bother you in any way, or if you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. The sprinkling and indeed immersion of adults is a perfectly normal practice.
Immersion?
You need have no apprehensions. A little sprinkling is all that is needed, or at least advisable. Our weather is so changeable. At what time would you like the ceremony performed?
Oh, I might trot around about 5 if that would suit you.
perfectly, perfectly. In fact, I have 2 other similar ceremonies to perform at that time. A case of twins that occurred on one of your outlying cottages. Poor Jenkins, the carter, a most hard-working man.
Well, I don't see much fun in being christened along with other babies. It would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably, admirably. But I would not like to intrude on a house of sorrow anymore. I would merely beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. It seems to us that bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
And this seems to me a most obvious blessing.
Oh, Jack. Oh, I'm so pleased to see you back. What horrid clothes you got on. Did you go and change them?
Cecily,
My child!
Uncle Jack, what is the matter? You look happy. You look as if you had a toothache. I have such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother.
Who?
Your brother Ernest. He arrived about half an hour ago.
What nonsense. I haven't got a brother.
Uncle Jack, don't say that. However badly he may have behaved to you in the past, he's still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These seem to be very joyful tidings.
after we had all been resigned to his death, his sudden return seems to be curiously distressing.
My brother is in the dining room. I don't know what this all means. I think it's all perfectly absurd. Oh, good heavens.
Brother John, I've come up from town expressly to tell you that I'm very sorry about all the trouble I've caused you, and that I intend to lead a better life in the future.
Uncle Jack, you're not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take this man's hand. I think his coming down here is disgraceful. And he knows perfectly well why.
Uncle Jack, do be nice. There's some good in everyone. Ernest has been telling me about his poor invalid friend, Mr. Bunbury, who he goes to visit so often. Surely there must be kind in someone who's kind to an invalid, who knows the pleasures of London is sit by a bed of pain.
He's been talking about Bunbury. Has he?
Oh yes, he told me all about poor Mr. Bunbury and his terrible student.
Well, I won't have him talk to you about Bunbury, or anything else. It's enough to drive one perfectly frantic.
Of course, I admit the faults were all on my side. However, I must say, Brother John's coldness to me is particularly painful. I expected a more enthusiastic welcome, especially considering this is the first time I've ever come here.
Uncle Jack, if you do not shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
Never forgive me.
Never, never, never.
Fine, but this shall be the only time I ever do it.
As it is not to see such a perfect reconciliation. Come now, we must not intrude on the two brothers any longer.
Cecily, you will come with us?
Certainly, Miss Prism. My little task of reconciliation is over.
You have done a beautiful action today, child.
Let us not be premature in our judgments.
I feel very happy.
You young scoundrel, Algy! You must get out of this place at once. I allow no Bunburying here.
Sir, I put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours. I suppose that is all right?
What?
His luggage, sir. I've unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
His luggage.
Yes, sir. 3 suitcases, 2 hat boxes, a dressing case, and a luncheon basket.
I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest has suddenly been called back into town.
Yes, sir.
What a fearful lie you are, Jack. I haven't been called back to town at all.
Yes, you have.
Well, I never heard anyone call me.
Your duty as a gentleman calls you back.
My duty as a gentleman have never interfered with my pleasures in the smallest degree.
I didn't quite understand that.
Well, Cecily, the darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous. Why don't you go up and change? It's perfectly perfectly childish to be mourning over someone who's actually staying in your house for a week as a guest. I call it grotesque.
You're not staying with me for a week as a guest or as anything else.
I certainly won't leave you so long as you were in mourning. I would think it very unkind if I didn't. If I were in mourning, you would stay with me.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes, if you don't take them. I've never seen someone take so long to get dressed with such little result.
Well, it's better than being as always overdressed as you are.
If I am ever occasionally a little overdressed, I make up for it by being always immensely overeducated.
Your vanity is ridiculous, your conduct an outrage, and your presence here in my garden utterly absurd. However, you have to leave by the 4:05 train, and I hope you have a pleasant journey back into town. This unburying, as you call it, has not been a great success for you.
Well, I think it's been a great success. I'm in love with Cecily, and that's everything. Now I must see Cecily before I go and make arrangements for another bunbury. Ah, there she is.
Oh, I merely came back to order the roses. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
He's gone to order the dog cars for me.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's going to send me away.
Then have we got to part?
I'm afraid so. It's a very painful parting.
It is always painful to part from people one is known for a very brief space of time. The absence of old friends one can endure with equanimity. But even a momentary separation from anyone to whom one has just been introduced is almost unbearable.
Thank you.
Sir, the dog cart is at the front door.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope, Cecily, I shall not offend you if I say that quite openly and frankly that you seem to me to be, in every way, the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you will allow, I will copy your marks into my diary.
Do you really keep a diary? Well, I'd be waiting to read it. May I?
Oh no, you see, it is simply a very young girl's record of her thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. When it appears in volume form, I hope you will order a copy. But please, Ernest, don't stop. I delight in taking down from dictation. I've reached absolute perfection. You may go on. I'm quite ready for more. Oh, don't cough, Ernest. When one is dictating, one should speak fluently, not cough. Besides, I don't know how to spell a cough.
Cecily. Sir, the dog cart is waiting. Tell her to come around next week, same hour.
Yes, sir.
Well, Jack would be very annoyed if he knew you were staying on next week at the same hour.
I don't care about Jack. I don't care about anybody in the whole world except for you, Cecily. I love you. You will marry me, won't you?
You silly boy, of course. Why, we've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months.
Yes, it'll be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, you see, when Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who was very wicked and bad, you, of course, formed the chief topic of conversation between myself and Miss Prism. And, of course, a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One believes there must be something in him, after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Entirely. And when was the engagement actually settled?
On the 14th of February last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter one way or another. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you under that dear old tree here. And the next day, I bought this little ring in your name. And this is the little bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
Did I give you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you have wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's always been the excuse I've given you for leading such a bad life. And in this box, I keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But my own sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember only too well that I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote 3 times a week, sometimes oftener.
Oh, well, do let me read them, Cecily.
Well, impossibly. It will make you far too conceited. The 3 you had written me after I'd broken off the engagement are so beautiful and so badly spelled that even now I can hardly read them without crying a little.
But was our engagement ever broken off?
Of course it was. On the 22nd of last March. You can read the entry if you like. Today I broke off my engagement with Ernest. I feel it is better to do so. The weather still continues trying.
But why on earth did you break it off, Cecily? What had I done? I had done nothing at all. I'm very much hurt indeed to hear you broke it off, especially when the weather was so charming.
It would hardly have been a very serious engagement if it had not been broken off at least once. But I forgave you before the week was out.
What a perfect angel you are, Cecily.
You dear romantic boy. I love your hair so much. Is it natural?
Yes, darling, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
Promise me you'll never break off our engagement again, Cecily.
I don't think I could now that we've actually met. Then, of course, there is the question of your name.
Yes. Yes, of course.
You mustn't laugh at me, darling, but it has always been a very girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Ernest. The name seems to inspire absolute confidence. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Ernest.
But, sweet child, do you mean to say you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
Well, my own sweet, dear, loving little Cecily, I don't see why you should object to the name. There's nothing wrong with the name at all. In fact, it's rather an aristocratic name. Half of the chaps who get into the bankruptcy court go by the name of Algernon. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algernon, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I should not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your record here is, I suppose, fairly experienced in all the rites and ceremonials of the church.
Oh yes, Dr. Chasuble is a most learned man. He hasn't written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Yes, yes. I must see him on a most important christening, one most important business.
Oh?
I shan't be gone more than half an hour.
Considering we've been engaged since February the 14th, and I've only met you today for the first time, I feel it's rather hard for you to leave me for such a long period as half an hour. Couldn't you make it 20 minutes?
I'll be back in no time.
What an impetuous boy he is. I love his hair so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Gwendolyn Fairfax calls to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his library?
He went in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Ask the lady to come out here. Mr. Worthing should be back soon. And you can bring tea.
Yes, miss.
Miss Fairfax. Suppose one of the good elderly women who are associated with Uncle Jack in some philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are interested in philanthropic work. So forward of them.
Miss Fairfax.
Please let me introduce myself. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew. What a very sweet name. Something tells me we are going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say, and my first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Please sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure.
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
If you wish.
Then it's all quite settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this might be a favorable opportunity for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You have heard of father, I suppose.
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, father, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that's quite how it should be. The home to me seems to be the proper space of men. And certainly once a man begins to neglect his mental duties, he becomes painfully effeminate, does it not? And I don't like that. It makes men so very attractive. Cecily, Mama, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It is part of her system. So do you mind my looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh, no, I live here.
Really? Your mother, no doubt, or something a relative of advanced years resides here as well.
Oh, no, I have no mother, or in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I'm Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh. It was very strange you never mentioned to me that you had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I'm not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. Cecily, I'm very fond of you. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that now that I know you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help expressing a wish you were, well, just a little older than you seem to be. Not so very alert in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly...
Oh, please do. I believe that if anyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish you were fully 42 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor. Disloyalty would be as impossible to him as deception. But even men of the noblest possible moral characters are extremely susceptible to the physical charms of others. Modern, no less than ancient history supplies us with the many more painful examples of what I have to refer to. If it were not so, history would be quite unreadable.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. Did you say Ernest?
Yes.
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a very long time.
Ah, that accounts for it. And now that I think of it, I have never heard any man mention his brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Cecily, you have lifted a load off my mind. I was growing almost anxious. It would be terrible if a cloud had come across a friendship like ours, would it not? Of course, you are quite sure it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
Gwendolyn, there's no reason I should keep a secret of it to you. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
My darling Cecily, I think there must be some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
Dear Gwendolyn, there must be some misconception. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
He was very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, please do so. I never travel without my diary. One should always have something sensational to read on the train. I am so sorry, dear Cecily, if this is any disappointment to you, but I'm afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn, if it caused you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he clearly has changed his mind.
If the poor fellow had been entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty at once to rescue him, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you! This is not the time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I am glad to say that I have never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay the tea as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Are there many interesting walks in the vicinity, Miss Cardew?
Oh yes, a great many. From one of the hills quite close, one can see up to 5 counties.
5 counties? I don't think I should like that. I hate crowds.
I suppose that is why you live in town.
Quite well have gardens, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here as people are in London.
Personally, I cannot understand how anybody manages to exist in the country, if anybody who's anybody does. The country always bores me to death.
That is what the newspapers call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy are suffering very much from it at present. It has become an epidemic amongst them, I've been told. Shall I offer you some tea, Miss Fairfax?
Thank you. Detestable girl. But I require tea.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter, please. Cake is rarely seen in the best houses nowadays.
And that, Miss Fairfax.
You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and I thought I asked more distinctly for bread and butter. You have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
Save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl. There are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I thought you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
Seems to me, Miss Fairfax, I'm not trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest, my own Ernest, a moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young woman?
Cecily? Of course not. What could have put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. Good night.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding. The gentleman whose arm is at present around your waist is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack? Ah!
Here is Ernest.
My love.
A moment. Could you please tell me, are you engaged to be married to this young woman?
To what young woman? Oh, good heavens, Gwendolyn!
Yes, to good heavens, Gwendolyn. I mean, Gwendolyn.
Of course not. What could put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I felt there was some slight error, Miss Cardew. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief? Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked. However, my name most certainly is John. It's been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced on both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily.
My sweet wrong Gwendolyn.
You will call me sister, will you not?
There's just one question I would like to be allowed to ask my guardian.
An excellent idea. Mr. Worthing, there is one question I would like to be permitted to ask you. Where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is of grave importance for us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it pains me very much to be forced to speak the truth. It's the first time in my entire life I've ever been reduced to such a painful position, and I am quite inexperienced in doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I have no brother at all. I have never had a brother in all my life, nor do I have the smallest intentions of ever having one in the future.
No brother at all?
None.
Had you never a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
It is obvious that neither of us are engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to find herself in.
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No, men are so cowardly, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things. This is what you call bunburying, I suppose.
Yes, and a wonderful Bunbury it is. The most wonderful Bunbury I've ever had in my whole life.
But you have no right whatsoever to bunbury here.
Oh, that's absurd. One has a right to Bunbury wherever one chooses. Every serious Bunburyist knows that.
A serious bunburyist. Good heavens.
Well, one must be serious about something if one wants to have any amusement in life. I happen to be serious about Bunbury. But I don't know if you're serious about it. I haven't got the remotest idea. Well, about everything I should fancy. You have such an absolutely trivial nature.
The only small satisfaction I had in this whole wretched business is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to get up and come down to the country as often as you used to. And a very good thing, too.
Your brother is a little off color, isn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to disappear off to London quite as often as your wicked custom was. And not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct towards Miss Cardew, I say you're taking a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
There is no possible defense of your deceiving of a brilliant, clever, fairly experienced young woman like Miss Fairfax, to say nothing of the fact that she is my cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn. That is all. I love her.
I simply want to be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There's certainly no chance of your ever marrying Miss Pardee.
I don't think there is much likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax being united.
That is no business of yours.
Well, if it was my business, I wouldn't talk about it. Only people like stockbrokers do that, and then merely at dinner parties.
How can you sit there, calmly eating muffins, when we're in this horrible state of things? I can't make out. You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can eat muffins in an agitated manner. The butter would probably get on my cups. One should always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it's perfectly heartless you're eating muffins at all under the circumstances.
When I'm in trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, when I'm in great trouble, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything, except food and drink. At the present moment, I am eating because I'm unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason you should eat them all in that greedy way.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless to eat muffins.
I thought it was perfectly heartless of you under the circumstances. That was a very different thing.
That may be, but the muffins are the same.
Algernon, I wish to goodness you would go.
Well, you can't possibly ask me to go without having dinner. It's absurd. No one ever does, except vegetarians and people like that. Besides, I've just made arrangements with Dr. Chaswell to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Ernest.
My dear friend, the sooner you give up that nonsense, the better. Besides, I've made arrangements this morning to be christened myself at 5:30, and I would naturally take the name of Ernest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't both be christened Ernest. That's absurd. Besides, I have the perfect right to be christened if I like. There's no evidence at all to support that I have ever been christened in my entire life. I should think it extremely probable I never was. And so is Dr. Chaswell. It is entirely different in your case. You've been christened already.
Yes, but I haven't been christened for years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That is the important thing.
Quite so. So I know my constitution can stand it. If you're not sure of your having ever been christened, I must say it's quite dangerous you're venturing on, and now it might make you very unwell. You can hardly forget that someone very closely connected with you was very nearly carried away this week in Paris by a severe chill.
But you said a severe chill is not hereditary.
It used to be, I know, but I dare say it is now. Science is always making such wonderful advancements in things.
That's nonsense.
Jack, you're at the muffins again. I wish you wouldn't. There are only 2 left. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
But I hate tea cake.
Well, then why on earth would you allow it to be served up for your guests? What ideas you have of hospitality.
Algernon, I wish to goodness you would go. I have already told you to leave. Why don't you go?
I haven't quite finished my tea yet. And there's still 1 muffin left.